What is going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to episode 3 of One Deck 1 Month featuring Photon Galaxy. And the past 2 weeks, I want to say, have gone about how I would expect them to go. Week 1, we went 3-1. We did get lucky and get a bye. Week 2, we kind of had what I would consider to be the average for a deck. Like the deck that we're playing ended up going 2-2. And here in week 3, I can only hope that we can do at least just a little bit better than last week. I think we are actually capable of at least getting a 3-1 secured with this newer build of the deck and with the new cards that we have at our disposal. Yes, the new cards are no Photon Jumper, but they're still good cards nonetheless. And again, I think the deck is capable of a 3-1. So I'd like to see us get one of those at least one more time over this month. And like I talked about in the first episode, each week is going to have its own definitive goal. And this week we are going to try to fix the problems that we identified in week 2 from our baseline build in week 1. I kind of came to the conclusion that the main problems the deck is having are two things. One, it doesn't build big enough boards, and two, it has a hard time playing through interruptions. Now, if that sounds like problems that pretty much every rogue deck has, it's because it is, right? Those are some pretty general and pretty big problems for any given deck to have. And I'm not saying that we can fix all of those problems 100% this week. By no means is that probably going to happen, but we can at least try, right? And I talked about at the end of episode 2, I do have a few methods, and I actually have a new method to kind of tack on to the other ones that I mentioned. It's a little bit more small scale and might be a little bit more realistic, if anything, to try to help improve this deck's ability to play through interruptions and potentially game-ending cards like D-Barrier and Nibiru. So that card mainly is just Cross-Out Designator. I'm actually going to a locals in about 20 minutes or so, a locals that I've never been to before. They are hosting a box tournament. The winner will get a box of Maze of Memories, and I think there is prize support for second and third place. So I'm going in with zero expectations, and we're going to play our deck list, and we'll just see what happens. The new thing I'm trying in the side deck is Cross-Out Designator, adding that to the list of things like Therion King Regulus and Photon Time Stop. I think it's like one of the more realistic approaches I could possibly put into this deck with the little testing that I've had this week. It's something I think that I can try without too much risk being put on the line. And it's mainly in there to stop D-Barrier going second, and going first we can stop any of the hand traps that we're playing in our deck like Nibiru, Impermanence, and Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So we'll just give it a shot. I'll throw the deck list up here on the screen so you guys can see what I'm going to be working with tonight. And if I don't like the Cross-Out Designators, I'll probably cut them in between now and our Saturday locals, which is tomorrow. Since I'm recording this Friday afternoon, we'll be playing in our locals, at least leaving for our locals in about 24 hours. And I know, again, I talked about Regulus, I talked about the Therion build, and I talked about the Artifact Durendal build with Photon Time Stop. I think personally, if I had to choose between two of those builds, I would definitely go with the Regulus build because I feel like there are less moving parts to go along with it. And tonight, after locals, if I can get any testing in like online or tomorrow before locals, honestly, I might even just wing it outright, just try playing a build with a Regulus in it and a gigantic champion Sargus in the extra deck. And I already have a pretty good idea of some things that I might cut. I might cut Photon Sanctuary completely and try to add in more Photon Thrasher to kind of replace Sanctuary in a ways, and something that isn't going to lock us out of summoning Sargus or Regulus. And I might cut that Galaxy Trance down to 1-2, since we're probably going to be more likely summoning non-Photon and Galaxy monsters just a little bit more often because of Regulus and because of Sargus. But that's just a quick little update, a quick little intro I wanted to give you guys here to start off episode 3. And yeah, box tournament tonight. The win-loss for this tournament isn't going to count towards our overall weekly progress or the progress for the month. It's just going to be kind of more testing, because I actually didn't end up streaming last night because wasn't feeling well, had a little bit of a headache, so I decided to call it off. So didn't get a chance to get in the testing that I normally would have gotten. So we'll try to make it up for it in the following week, and by going to this locals tonight. It's going to be 4 rounds, same format as my regular locals, so Again, not too many expectations for me. I'm just going to play the deck and try to play it as best as I possibly can. I won't be doing any recording either, because again, I've never been to this locals before. I don't want to walk in with a bunch of camera equipment right unannounced. And it'll be nice to just kind of like play Yu-Gi-Oh! At a locals like a normal person, right? That's going to feel really good actually, and not have to worry about getting some shots, filming some things, right? All that stuff. It's going to be really, really nice. Nice change of pace. So I've got to get ready because I have to leave relatively soon. In fact, I'm probably falling a little bit behind if I'm being honest, but I'm very excited to see how things go. I've already got the crossouts in the side deck IRL, and wish me luck. And just like that, we are back from that little box tournament over at Top Cut Cards. And unfortunately, I have to report to you guys that we did not win the box. Is anybody surprised? But no, seriously, we did not win the box. We ended up going X2 immediately. We lost our first 2 rounds. First, we lost to Labyrinth. And then secondly, we lost to Kashtira. I feel like I probably could have won the Labyrinth match and definitely, maybe could have gone to a Game 3 against Kashtira. I'll go in detail more about those particular matchups in just a minute. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the crossout designator. How did this perform, right? What are my thoughts on this card after a tournament with it? Well, to be fair, I never sided this in, and again, we only played 2 matches with it in the side deck. So really not enough experience with the card, not enough data with the card to really have a good understanding of how I like this card or how I'm going to like it going forward in the deck. But one thing I can say though, apart from, obviously I never sided it in, but I think the best thing this card does is stopping D-Barrier. And we're only going to ever need to stop D-Barrier going second. Going first, you could argue we could put this in to stop Nibiru Ash Imperm, but I feel like those cards are not nearly as big of a threat as something like D-Barrier is going to be, because oftentimes we can end up playing through hand traps like Nibiru, Ash, Imperm, etc. But we can pretty much always never play through a D-Barrier unless our opponent completely bricks, right? Or they're playing a deck that doesn't really OTK, and they give us an extra turn, right? Then maybe we can survive, but most of the time we're going to be taking our L's to D-Barrier like we have in the past and probably will continue to do so. So I find like I was never really wanting to side this card in going first when I was looking through my side deck, but going second, I was kind of considering this card really just to be able to stop D-Barrier. But the problem is that means we need to side in 3 crossouts going first or going second and 1 D-Barrier. That's 4 cards going into boards that really don't do anything to deal with the board itself. And that's kind of where I have the problem with it. It's a lot of cards to put in that aren't going to help break our opponent's board or at least stop the board from being made in the first place. So I don't know if it's really worth it at that point for that much space, and we really don't have that much room looking at the deck list here to be able to put in that many cards. Like if we need to put in all of these and Book of Eclipse and Change of Heart or Twin Twister, Cosmic Cyclone, or Evenly Matches and Twin Twisters and Cosmic Cyclone, right? We don't have the room to put in all of those cards without drastically taking out tons of engine cards and other good going second / defensive cards. So for that reason, I think I might just drop it going forward, but it just sucks knowing that we're probably going to lose to D-Barrier a good amount of times, and Crossout's really the only card that can deal with it. The way I look at it, it's like a 50-50 chance, right? If we go second, we're losing to D-Barrier being flipped immediately, or we're losing to the board they put up because we didn't have enough extenders or strong enough hand to get through it, right? And I feel like I almost want to take that chance, right? Just because it's 50-50, I don't know. It's just so rough. I'd rather put in other cards in the side deck, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that's my thoughts on Crossout for now. It might stay in the side deck for tomorrow's locals. I don't know yet. I'll have to think about it, overnight, sleep on it, and ponder on it tomorrow and talk more with some of my friends and get their input on it, because they definitely a little bit more experienced in the meta right now than I am. I haven't really been focused that much, although One Deck One Month has really been getting me back into the meta game a little bit anyways, which is nice, right? But yeah, our matches. Labyrinth. I played Labyrinth round 1. Ended up winning game 1 in a grind game, surprisingly enough. He had skill drain up pretty much the whole game, and just putting up huge bodies was really all it took, honestly, to keep myself in the game. And, you know, Photon Emperor kept floating. A Cypher Blade floated into a regular Cypher, and his Labyrinth monsters were big, but, you know, so are all of our monsters, right? So it forced him to, like, not really be able to do anything in the battle phase when he needed to, and he just ended up admitting defeat. Moving into game 2, he opened up pretty solid, and we just really couldn't do anything about it. Game 3 went the distance, and it got to a point where I was able to establish number 90 Blast Dragon and Galaxy Photon Dragon, like, in a really good spot, but he had skill drain, so he was able to end up targeting and destroy some of our cards, until I ended up Pot of Prosperity into a Twin Twister to clear his back row. And I kind of lost track of time. The clock was behind me, and I remember looking back, seeing like 8 minutes left, right? And my opponent was up in life points, I think, a little bit, or no, they were down in life points a little bit, but I wanted to keep the pressure on, so I felt rushed to try to get in more damage, because I thought the time was really, really running down. But I ended up overthinking the whole situation. I ended up linking off my Blast Dragon and my Galaxy Photon Dragon, which is a terrible idea, because I ended up losing to his traps picking off my board later on in the game, and had I kept Blast Dragon and Galaxy Photon Dragon, he wouldn't have been able to touch anything on our field. So I completely punted that game there, handed it to him on a silver platter, and that's entirely on me. The Cashier matchup, the only thing I want to talk about is game 1. I got to go first, and I had Trance in hand, I had Emperor on board and Galaxy Photon Dragon, I had a Wizard Search. And at that point, right, if you've got a Galaxy Eyes Engraved and you have Trance in hand, and you're getting another Galaxy Search, what do you grab, right? You definitely don't grab Afterglow like I did, because I was naive to think that my Trance was going to resolve, and when he ashed it, I was a little deer in headlights, because I was like, whoa, what do I do now? This Afterglow is sitting here laughing at me in my hand, when I should have just added Expedition, because had I added the Expedition, I could have played it, brought out the Afterglow, made number 90, right, and then activate it, because I had 100 up too, so we would have ripped 2 out of the extra deck, but then I would have played the Trance. If he tries to Ash, we negate, right, and if he ashes the Expedition, fine, right, we can still get a double extra deck rip and establish a number 90, and yeah, it ended up leaving me with just Soul Flare Pass, because I decided to add Afterglow, because I just wasn't thinking, honestly. So that was our tournament experience. Really, really rough right out the gate. But yeah, oh, one highlight. There is one highlight out of this, I can assure. And it's, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but I did pick up this bad boy right here. I finally got my hands on one CR Photon Orbital. It looks so good. I think I only got it for like 26 bucks. Not a bad price. It was like 23 plus tax, so I'll take it. Now I only need 2 more, and we can max out this deck. I probably wouldn't say it's max rarity, but it's pretty close. So yeah, that was our little box tournament experience. It is what it is. Will Crossout stay in the side deck? Stay tuned. I don't know. But I'm going to spend the rest of the night and a little bit tomorrow before locals thinking about it, get some input on it, and we'll take it from there. Welcome to Saturday, everybody. It is about 5:15 in the afternoon, which means I will be heading out to locals very, very shortly. Now, last I talked to you guys, I talked about having a little bit of a decision to make as we head into the final stages of week 3, and that was regarding Crossout Designator and Dimension Barrier, right? That being one of the biggest things that is plaguing our tournament success right now, is dealing with D-Barrier. And funny enough, actually, I'll just throw this in here. Last night, after that box tournament, I went on Omega and played one match on the ladder. and I only played one mainly because it was really late and the queue times were taking forever. I ended up playing against Labyrinth, and we actually beat them, so it was a little bit of redemption from the loss we took at the tournament. But the funny thing is, they went first, and I normal summoned Galaxy Wizard, and they just straight up flipped D-Barrier, called Xyz immediately, and I literally just had to scoop, and I was like, damn, that just feels really, really bad. It feels a little bittersweet moving away from Crossout, but if I'm being totally honest, I think it's just gonna be the right thing to do. For the time being, I could eat those words in week 4 or tonight at locals, but that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. The thing that I am going with, this is gonna be the new thing that I really want to try, is playing Eternal Galaxy in the side deck. Now, for those that don't know what this card does, I will put it up here on the screen for you guys to read alongside me. It says, if you control a Photon or Galaxy monster, target one Xyz monster you control, special summon from your extra deck one Photon or Galaxy Xyz monster that is 4 ranks higher than that target by using that target as material. This is treated as an Xyz summon. Its materials are transferred, and you can only activate once per turn. So the reason behind playing this card is it's going to help us do a couple things. The first being that we don't really have to burn as many resources or go through as many hoops turn 1 now, post side anyways, to try to set up some of our better boards of like number 90 and number 38 or Blast Dragon, etc. We can simply now just end on number 90 and either Blast Dragon or Galaxy Photon Dragon, have this set in the back row, and that is going to allow us to rank up into whatever Xyz monster we feel as though we need, whether it's going to be C62 or number 38 on our opponent's turn. And that is going to help diversify where our interruptions are coming from, which we currently don't have, and that is something I feel like this deck really needs, and this is starting to seem more and more promising. It's going to help us dodge Kaijus and Lava Golems strictly because no one is going to go after the little rank 4s that we have left on our field, and that means this card is going to get to walk pretty much uninterrupted every time, allowing us to get back what we lose from Kaijus and Lava Golems by, you know, replacing a rank 4 that's not really doing anything with a rank 8 that's acting as an interruption and acting as a way to search follow-up, and is a bit of a roadblock for our opponent. So those really high impact cards that we were having a very hard time dealing with, I feel like this card is going to do a great job at lessening the impact those cards are going to have on us. And I put Ghost and Match back on the side because, again, that's another anti-Kaiju, anti-Lava Golem card, another good Floodgate card, which our deck just really needs to compete, that unfair aspect, and D-Barrier, again, speaking of unfair, staying in the side deck at 3. So I was going to go with the Therion stuff, I was going to go with the Durendal stuff, but I want to keep it simple, I want to keep it very straight and to the point, and that is what the Eternal Galaxy I think is going to be for in the side deck. So I'm very excited to see how this is all going to work.
Ooh, Galaxy Expedition. I want to rip it in half, but I probably shouldn't.
Alright, so we just wrapped up round 1. We ended up playing against Branded Despia, and we lost that game 2-0. Very similar to what happened last week. Granted, he didn't have any blowout cards like Nibiru, Super Poly, and Bystials. It was just rough for other reasons. Game 1, I ended up making a crucial error with my Pot of Prosperity. I banished number 62 when I shouldn't have. I needed to keep that in my extra deck so I could get access to C62 to be able to clear the whole board and put up a relatively big boss monster that maybe he wouldn't have been able to deal with, being unaffected by monsters and being that huge attack-wise. So that probably could have shifted the tide of the game, although I'm not entirely sure. And then game 2, I I made a safe yet not so safe play with Prosperity. I took an Ash off of it when I feel as though I should have taken the Brave because my hand was weak enough to the point where I really couldn't afford taking something like Ash there because my hand was so weak with it that my hand lost to a single Ash, which my opponent did have on Orbital, and the Small World could not bridge me into Vanisher, which is, I think, exactly what I needed to at least keep going to search Eternal Galaxy to set it and at least rank up into a number 30 and number 90. And I'm just trying to think if I would have taken the Galaxy Brave. I've been spending the last couple minutes trying to run this through in my head, and I can't really think how the board would have fared had I taken the Brave, considering our Orbital still gets ashed. So I think we might actually go over that video because I'm kind of curious to see if I would have taken Brave, where would that have left us with our board, and would that have changed the outcome of the game? So let's go over that. I said I was going to go over round one, so let's go ahead and hop right into round one. Like I said, I ended up playing against a branded Bestial deck, and there were some fatal errors possibly made during game one, and also possibly during game two, and we'll dive into that Pot of Prosperity play when we get to that point. But I'm glad I went over and kind of rewatched this because the mistake that I made in game one here regarding Prosperity as well, not so much what I added off of it, but more so what I banished off it, I feel a little better because it didn't really matter actually in the grand scheme of things. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So my opening hand is Rhoda, Imperm, Galaxy Soldier, Galaxy Wizard, and Photon Orbital. And my opponent has Tragedy opening Radian and Fusion Deployment, and I can't see what the other two cards are at the moment. So they're going to lead with the the Branded opening, discarding the Tragedy, Chainlink 1 Aluber, Chainlink 2 Tragedy, and they are just going to kind of plus into the sun. They grab Branded Fusion, they activate Branded Fusion, Fusion Deployment. And I was kind of expecting him maybe to go for the Aqua Dolphin play there, but they were not going for the Aqua Dolphin play. And I know most people actually end up siding that, so I guess it makes sense that he didn't end up sending that. Going for Cartesia is just okay. And I wanted to go ahead and not Imperm Aluber like I typically would, you know, if this was like Dimension Force format. So I figured I'd hold the Imperm for either Lubellion or Albion in the extra deck. And I'm kind of glad I did because it successfully keeps him off of Mirror Jade. He will go for Bestial Lubellion, sending off the Albion, getting Branded lost in the deck, fusing with the Cartesia and the Aluber to go into Grand Guignol, and that is going to go ahead and dump out the Retribution and Serenir. So it has the Retribution set up to be able to add things back like Branded Fusion, and they're going to go ahead and set Branded in red there in the end phase, and we draw a Pot of Prosperity off for turn. The card in question this match, it seems like. So I go and activate Reinforcing the Army, grab Photon Thrasher, and this is why I love Photon Thrasher so much in this deck. Like, it just opens you up for a lot. It's, in some cases, a better Photon Sanctuary because it's a monster with a level that can be used as Ixie's material, which pairs very well with Orbital, pairs very well with Vanisher, pairs very well with Advancer. And it's a starter card, about as close as you can get to a starter card in this deck, unlike things like Vanisher and Advancer, where those really require things already to be on field for you to be able to take advantage of them. So I end up searching that beautiful ulti Photon Thrasher. Shout out to my man Alex for hooking me up with that. And then I end up equipping Photon Orbital to it. My opponent had a lot of questions about what my cards did here, understandably so. That's been kind of the theme so far this month. Nobody knows any of my cards do. But that's nice because it's a little bit of advantage for us, and we definitely need it wherever we can get it. So I use Orbital, and they have Ash Blossom for the Orbital. So I decide here to follow up with the Pot of Prosperity before I go any further, because I have Galaxy Soldier and Wizard in hand. A pretty okay set of cards also. And I end up banishing 6 here because I really do need to see a good card, a good extender. I end up revealing the 1 CR Orbital in the deck, a Galaxy Trance, I know it's hard to see with the glare, a Photon Emperor, Galaxy Eyes, a copy of Sanctuary, and a copy of Summoner. And seeing that Emperor is huge. Like, that's exactly what I needed to see, honestly. Or any decent discard target, honestly, for Galaxy Soldier. But Emperor obviously makes the most sense to go ahead and grab. So I go ahead and grab the Emperor, My opponent's going to read it, and I'm like, now this is going to give me a lot more gas to go into my opponent's field, because I'm going to get the additional normal summon now, thanks to the Emperor hitting the field, as long as he doesn't have an interruption for it coming out of the grave, which he did not. And I'm going to be able to search Summoner, so I can kind of hold that Galaxy Wizard play till the very end to grab Trance to try to punch, you know, over the entire board, and try to put myself in a good, advantageous spot. On resolution, my opponent does use the Branded in red here, though, and accidentally puts some of his cards back in the grave, so we correct that there. He brings out the Albion with the Ad-lib, and, you know, gets some searches, right? Gets some follow-up, and ends up drawing 2 cards and popping just one. Pops the Emperor. Now, my opponent had a little bit of a misunderstanding on how Emperor worked. I told him, you know, that he gives an additional normal summon the turn, so I even read the card, so he ended up popping it there because he assumed that if Emperor left the field that I would no longer have my additional normal summon, so that's why he ended up making the play that he did. And I understand, right? But that's not how it works. So, because our opponent misunderstood the card, luckily for us, I mean, it really didn't matter too much what they ended up popping with the Guardian Chimera, if I'm being totally honest, because I would have been able to get into Galaxy Photon Dragon regardless. Maybe they could even have held it for this point. That way they could have saved Mercurier for something else. They end up Mercurrying the Galaxy Photon Dragon. And then I go ahead and use my additional normal summon there for Wizard to go ahead and grab Galaxy Trans. So now that we got Galaxy Trans, I'm feeling like, all right, we're in a really, really good spot right now. This is my time to shine, bring out some big bodies, go and do a big Xyz play, right, and try to get somewhat ahead in this game because my opponent's been greatly out-resourcing me pretty much the entire game so far. And one thing I'm not actually sure if I did or not, I don't think it changes things too much, but I hope I used Galaxy Summoner at this point to make Soldier a level 4, because it's being more useful as a level 4 than it is a level 5. But the only thing I think that could have gave me the opportunity to do would be to go into a Blast Dragon, since, you know, Galaxy Photon Dragon and Blast Dragon are really the only 2 valuable Galaxy Photon rank 4s, and it's not like we could have gone into Utopia Rising or anything, or any other generic rank 4, because we're about to lock ourselves in with the Galaxy Trance, which we definitely need to activate right now. Now, somebody also brought up a very interesting extra deck tech, I want to say, I think in the first episode of One Deck One Month, and that was Exciton Knight. And that was a really cool tech. And honestly, that definitely would have come up right here. The only problem is that we would Exciton, wipe the field, and then we literally have no interruptions outside of an Exciton, and our opponent has a Radiant in hand. And yeah, I don't think it would have been too impactful, but it definitely could have come up here. We just wouldn't have been able to use Galaxy Trance. So we do fire off the Trance here. I do target the Emperor in the grave. It's the only level 8 Photon in grave, and we'll bring out a copy of Afterglow. And here I was like, you know what? We can go into number C62 right now and wipe all 3 monsters that he has on board. But then it hit me, and I was like, wait, I banished number 62. So I can't do that. So my only real play right now is like, I definitely don't want to go into number 90, although I could have gone into number 90 and, you know, linked off the Thrasher and the Soldier and added back an Orbital, re-equipped the Orbital to the number 90. It's a 3500 number 90, can't be destroyed by card effects, right? Is a monster negate. So that was definitely a viable play. As you see, I go for number 38 here because I might as well opt for the Spell Negate, right? It's at 4,000 currently because of the attack gain from Orbital and Galaxy Photon Dragon. And I have to pass there basically just because of that pretty big mistake. Now, to be fair, if I would have cleared his entire field, he would have gotten Cartesia back and would have also gotten something off of Albion. And it also just doesn't matter outright because they have Radiant. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and scoop it up because even if he didn't have Radiant, I don't think anything that we could have done would have made a difference. Honestly, actually, and maybe somebody can tell me, if we would have made C62 a 5600 monster unaffected by our opponent's monster effects, how do they get over? How does Branded Despia get over a 5600 monster unaffected by monster effects without something like a Kaiju? I don't know offhand right now. I'm not going to spend time thinking about it. If anybody can think about it in the comments, let me know. But let's go ahead and take a look at Game 2. So here we are in Game 2, and as expected, I will be going first here. And this hand is also really interesting, as I think it's going to demonstrate one minor issue that I have with Small World in the deck currently. And my opening hand is Afterglow, Galaxy Summoner, 2 1-ofs by the way, Photon Orbital, Pot of Prosperity and Small World. So we are going to kick things off here by activating Pot of Prosperity. I decided to banish 3 because I'm like, you know what? I'm technically already playable. Not super playable, but I am playable. So if I can conserve stuff in the extra deck, to be fair, I probably should have just banished 6 outright. But I reveal Ash, Wizard, and Brave. And yeah, right here, this is what I was talking about earlier, how I thought Brave would have been a much better addition to the hand here than the Ash would have, and it would have allowed us to make a much better end board, and I'll kind of walk you guys through that right now. So we take the Brave, right? We then would use the Brave, revealing the Orbital, summoning the Brave to the field as a level 4. We then equip Photon Orbital to it. We try to use its effect to search. It gets hit with the Ash that our opponent has, and like they're going to Ash anyways as we play out the rest of this game. Then we would normal summon Galaxy Summoner. That would bring back the Photon Orbital. We would then overlay the Photon Orbital and the Galaxy Summoner into Galaxy Photon Dragon. That would go ahead and search as a copy of Photon Vanisher. We special summon Photon Vanisher, and we do not use the effect of Galaxy Photon Dragon to make it a level 8 for reasons I'll explain in just a moment. We add the Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, then we link the Galaxy Brave, which is now a level 4, and the Photon Vanisher into Bujinki Ahashima. We then special summon the Galaxy Brave, which is a level 8 in the graveyard, and the Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon in our hand to the board. At this point, we can then special summon the Afterglow to the field since Galaxy Eyes is on the board. We can make Divine Dragonite Felgran, activate its effect, targeting itself, using Afterglow to bring out another Galaxy Eyes, overlay both the Brave and the Galaxy Eyes into number 90 or number 38, and we would end on a pretty decent board, honestly. Much more interruptions than we end up making without taking the Brave, and yeah, I mean, that definitely would have been much better, and we would not have any monsters left in the hand, so the Small World in hand would be dead. That's the one issue I kind of have with Small World sometimes in certain hands. It's not always a usable card, so that's why I think going forward I might actually just drop it down to a 1-up, just to kind of slightly increase the counts of certain good cards in our deck. Like, mainly we're using it to get access to Wizard and Soldier more often, as those are our best starters and extenders. So sorry if that rambled on for a little bit too long there, but you're gonna see what happens when I take the Ash Blossom. And could you really blame me for taking Ash Blossom in this particular situation anyways? Like, I'm playing branded, right? I kind of felt pressured in my head. I was like, how stupid am I gonna look if I don't take Ash Blossom against branded Despia, right? My opponent would probably think that I'm an absolute clown. And I don't know, maybe that was the right thing to do, maybe it wasn't. And another problem with Small World you're going to see right here is after my opponent ashes my Photon Orbital, I'm like, ooh, you know, what's this Small World going to get me? And I obviously can't Small World away the Ash. I'm pretty sure there's probably like one thing that Ash can get me into, and I think it's like another Orbital or something. But, or maybe a Vanisher, I can't remember actually. But I have to go into the Afterglow, into Soldier, into Wizard, and I'm basically just adding follow-up here, because I literally can't do anything else with this, because starting with the Afterglow is so rough. You can't bridge through Nibiru because they both have 3,000 attack and they're both light. And then my opponent has Fusion Deployment, goes for Cartesia, goes for Grand Guignol, and yeah, one thing I mentioned too about the Fusion Deployment, if we would have made the other board, our opponent would have been able to Fusion Deployment into Albaz, which could have immediately forced the Felgran. And then at that point, we have number 38 still to stop their branded fusion, and they did have Crossout for the Ash. So, like, taking the Ash played more into Crossout, and taking or going the route of making number 38 would have definitely played around that, because we probably would have had a stop to their branded fusion where they couldn't have stopped it with something like, you know, Crossout Designator. So that was kind of like a 9,000 IQ play. I didn't see it at that particular moment. That's why more testing is always needed. And yeah, that is pretty much it with our round 1 matchup against Brandon Despia. We lose 0-2, and there was definitely a few mistakes there that could have prevented that outcome that we had. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue on with the tournament.
Alright, so it is just after round 3. I forgot to record an update after round 2, but we play against Trap Tricks, my good friend Gene, and we ended up losing. That was a pretty okay match. If our round 4 match is any less interesting or impactful or important, we will probably go over that match. So I'm thinking we might, because Trap Tricks has become a relatively popular deck recently with the release of the structure deck. So it might be helpful to kind of go over that for that particular matchup and how our deck fares against it. And this next round, actually, we played against another Trap Tricks deck, and we had some better luck that time. We lost, I think, 2-1 or 1-2 to the first one in round 2, and then we just beat this one 2-0. And it's amazing what happens when you don't get hit with D-barrier, and that's how we ended up losing, surprisingly, in round 2, is to another D-barrier. So I said I might eat those words of not wanting to play cross out in the side, and maybe I am now. Maybe I am, but you know, that's a lot of side deck slots. That's like evenlies. Maybe the evenlies don't need to go in against that particular matchup. Maybe it's better just to leave those out in place of things like cross out. But I'll update you guys after round 4. Hopefully we can win out and go 2-2 at least.
Yeah, I think we will go over round 2. Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna do, because Trap Tricks is not only a deck that's growing very, very popular at my own locals, but every time I stream and get on the ladder, it seems like a deck that I play against at least 2+ times a night. And reviewing this matchup will definitely, I think, not only benefit me, but benefiting a lot of my fellow Galaxy players who are joining me right now on the struggle bus. So let's take a look at this. Like I said, I'm playing against my good friend Gene here. I did manage to fix the camera angle a little bit. Let me just shrink myself down a little bit there. But yeah, I also started recording just a tad bit late. I ended up winning die roll. I did go first. My opponent did have Nibiru, but we were able to recover through the Nibiru and still make a number 90 with the help of Bujinki Hashima. That card still stays very, very clutch at helping to play through things like Nibiru. So my opponent does, and they also had Ash as well, as you can see, and there's the Photon Sanctuary in my graveyard. One of the reasons why I still like this card in the deck, especially at 2. I think 1's still too little. I've tried to go to 1 a couple times, and I've just never felt great doing so. So the normal Mermelio, they go ahead and get a search. They go into Trap Trick Sarah, and then they're going to activate Parallel Exceed. And, you know, I really have just 1 interruption here. I technically have 2 interruptions. The Bujinki Ahashima is definitely going to put in work here on its own, strictly because it does offer some back row removal. Anytime a monster that it points to would detach a material to activate its effects, it can, you know, trigger it to pop additional spell trap that the opponent controls. So it's a little 2-for-1 deal there, especially when you have number 90 right underneath it. And they're going to go for Pinguicula, I think. I don't really know what it's pronounced. But they're just going to go ahead and go into battle phase and attack over the Bujinki Ahashima. So now they don't have to worry about that back row effect coming in clutch. They're going to go ahead and activate the effect now. And I do contemplate here whether I want to go ahead and interrupt that, and I decide to go ahead and do so. So we negate and destroy. They also have another Nibiru in hand, and one other card that I can't tell exactly which. They ended up searching that new Trap Tricks Trap Hole, and they're going to go ahead and pass turn. And I'm drawing Small World for turn, so again, not really a great draw at this point in the game. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. It's actually a pretty good draw here. Yeah, definitely a pretty good draw here. I definitely misspoke. So we're going to be able to turn our Galaxy Soldier into a Galaxy Wizard by going Wizard into Nibiru into Wizard, or Soldier into Nibiru into Wizard. And now we can basically normal summon this to go ahead and get access to Galaxy Trance. And yeah, I think that's probably the best thing to go for, since I do have Galaxy Eyes Engrave already. And our deck really doesn't grind, so we want to go ahead and try to end the game as quickly as possible right here. If we can't end the game right now, we're probably going to be in trouble. So we're going to go ahead and rank up into Cypher X. And I probably could have gone for full armor, but it might have been banished off my prosperity. And they're going to go ahead and use the trap right now to get rid of the token. And they're going to summon out Pudica. And Pudica is going to go ahead and banish the Cypher X. So I'm like, all right, that whole interaction is out of the way now. Now we can freely fire off our trance. And basically can continue to play. They have that Nibiru in hand. So we've summoned 1, 2, 3 times right now. And this will be our 4th if we go for 62. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm banishing 62 again. I'm not going to make that same mistake. 5th summon, and it is unaffected by monster effects. So that Nibiru is not going to do anything to us right now. Feels good that we can actually like play around that. We're going to enter the battle phase. We're going to detach Brave. It's got Galaxy Eyes underneath it, so It does gain all those additional effects. It gains the attack. It's unaffected by monster effects, and we're able to clean out the entire board here. And we are under trance, so, you know, I can't go into Zeus or anything. Otherwise, Zeus would be really, really strong. It's one thing you can do with this deck. You can rank up a lot of times. Like, you can go, like, into Cypher, you know, into Full Armor, into Zeus. You can't go Cypher X into Zeus, which is a mistake I still make sometimes because Cypher X says it can't be used material. Also, remember to bring back a card in the standby phase when they use that Pudica effect. They don't have to remind you come standby phase, but when they activate it, they do have to tell you that something comes back in the standby. And luckily my opponent is nice and told me that I had the opportunity to bring something back. And it really doesn't make a big difference here since he can just banish it again off that Pudica. And he's going to start kind of comboing off here, you know, with Holatea, Dionea, and getting more traps set back in the back line. But at this point, I'm like kind of curious. I'm like, how is he going to end up outing this number C62? He's going to go into Time Thief Redoer. And I'm like, all right, I know exactly how. The one trap card that can just basically banish or pop a monster. If I control a special summon monster, I believe. I think it's the new Trap Trapple Nightmare. And he's going to go ahead and pass turn there. Redoer will take a trap off the top of my deck. And, you know, Cypher X come back, so I draw for turn. He activates that trap card, pops the C62, banishes the Cypher X, and I end up admitting defeat there because I can't do much else at that given point. So we're going to go ahead and side deck here, and we'll take a look at game 2. So here we are at the start of game 2. My opening hand is Orbital Trance Expedition Summoner, and I believe that last card is Emperor. So we have 1, 2, 3 one-ofs in our hand. I feel like I don't play that many one-ofs, but man, do I feel like I draw them all the time. So the play here is very, very plain and simple. It's just going to be normal summon Galaxy Soldier, activate Orbital to equip, activate Orbital effect. Does our opponent have Ash? Luckily, they do not. So we can go ahead and secure a copy of Galaxy Soldier, activate Soldier, discarding the Emperor. We're going to go Chainlink 1 Soldier, Chainlink 2 Emperor, and search out Wizard. And it sucks that we had to just use our regular normal summon on Summoner without resolving its effect. So a little bit of value lost there, unfortunately. But at least we have, you know, some cards in hand to be able to make up for it. Like, we already have Expedition and Trance. So, like, trying to figure out what to do here and doing it optimally can be a little overwhelming because we have so many cards at our disposal to be able to use. And this is where Eternal Galaxy is actually going to come up for the first time in the series. So I already have these really powerful searchers and extenders in my hand. So I'm like, you know what? Let's search Eternal Galaxy right here. Normal Summon Wizard, activate its effect to go ahead and search. We're going to grab 100. 100 is going to go and dump Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon to the grave. And I'm like, this is setting up perfectly here to be able to really get a double extra deck rip, so long as I don't screw it up, to be able to, you know, double extra deck rip with Afterglow. So I'm looking at my opponent's extra deck right now, and I'm like, man, oh man, I literally have no idea what to banish. My opponent is on 3 Sarah, right? They're also on, I think, 1 Redoer. So, you know, arguably, I feel like you can't go wrong with banishing one of his extra decks, but I felt like Redoer is not that impactful, and I was so confident in my head. I'm like, I'll definitely be able to, you know, banish 2 cards from his extra deck. That's what I was so sure of. I'm like, so I think that's why I ultimately get rid of one of the Traptrix rank 4s. Yeah, I think I get rid of 1 Pinguicula, and then I end up overlaying into number 90, and then I end up activating Galaxy Trance, targeting the Orbital Engrave, and Orbital is going to go ahead and bring out the Galaxy Wizard. And at this point I was like, yeah, why did I do that play the way that I did it? I definitely should have expeditioned out an Afterglow or something to be able to actually, like, take advantage of doing a double extra deck rip, but I just didn't do it. So that definitely was a mistake. Definitely didn't take full advantage of that Galaxy 100 effect. So that's on me. Well, I guess technically not, because I could use the Blast Dragon to bring back a Galaxy Eyes, right, and get the second extra deck rip anyway. So I'm being a little too hard on myself, I guess. But my opponent is going to go into the battle phase, and they have evenly matched. I'm like, okay, so everything just goes out the window here at this point. And I literally have no idea what to grab. I'm kind of scrambling. Like, I'll just grab some back row removal, right? Can't go wrong with that. And no point in keeping the Eternal Galaxy here since, we can only keep 1 card anyways, and we're definitely not keeping that. So We end on just basically number 90. They activate Mantis, end up negating and destroying. They pass turn. I'm like, okay, must have gotten pretty lucky there that he had a weak hand and no extenders to go along with it. Didn't have the field spell or anything. So we activate Sanctuary, which we rip off the top. Go into Soul Flare, activate its effect, add back Wizard, normal Wizard, grab the second Trance, activate the Trance. And yeah, this is just going to be game outright since we have a number 90 on field. So we can protect our OTK right now. And I think they try to use Nibiru, and I think they realize that, yeah, we can just negate it anyways. So yeah, that is game 2. We end up taking it not so hard, right? Pretty easy there. And it was cool that we were able to search out the Eternal Galaxy there. I was really glad to be able to showcase that on camera in a game. So let's move on and take a look at game 3. Right, so here we are in game 3. My opening hand is Galaxy Expedition, Twin Twister, Galaxy Eyes, Photon Vanisher, and one other card there. It might be Galaxy Trance. And honestly, I'm like, you know what? Twin plus Galaxy Eyes plus Trance, best 3-card combo against Trap Tricks, right? Let's see if that actually ends up being true. So my opponent has, I think, double D Barrier and a few other cards, one of them being Mermelio. So they're going to go ahead and normal summon Mermelio, and that is going to go and grab Halatea. And they're going to link off the Mermelio into Sarah, and they're going to go ahead and set Halatea, activate Halatea, discarding Dimension Barrier. And as soon as I saw my opponent discard the D Barrier, I'm like, all right, so one of two things are happening right now. Either he opened up so bad that he has to discard D Barrier off of this, or he simply just has another copy. So he brings out Pudica, not Pinguicula, that's the other one. He goes for the Link 2, and yeah, he ended up doing this because he misplayed and was supposed to drop the Parallel Exceed on the summon of Sarah. And obviously these things happen, right? So had to make a little bit of a deviation in the play line to be able to trigger the Parallel Exceed. And goes into, what is this, Alomaris. And this one lets you revive one from the grave. So now he goes for Alomaris, Rafflesia, set D Barrier, and the Link 2 allows him to get one back, I believe, during my end phase. So I just lead with Twin Twister here, discarding the Galaxy Eyes and activating D Barrier. And I'm like, all right, at this point, what exactly can I do to make it so I just don't outright die next turn? Like, at this point, there's so many things that could potentially come to mind. It's just like really hard to think about all of them, right? Like, what's the best thing to do at this point? Like, I have Trance, I drew Wizard for turn, like I have plays to make, but the only real plays that I can make is like set up Soul Flare with a bunch of huge bodies on field. And even at that point, like, we're probably just getting Zeus, you know what I mean? So like we just can't do anything. It's really, really unfortunate, but I'll let this one play out just so you guys can see what I do under D Barrier here. Spoiler alert, it's not much. I lead with Trance, and Trance is going to go ahead and bring out both Galaxy Eyes and Brave. And my opponent was debating on using the Rafflesia here, but they do not. And I was like, oh yeah, I can just go into number 90. And then I was like, oh yeah, can't do that. We're under D Barrier. So I don't know why I thought that was a line that we could take. Just force that habit, I guess. So we go ahead and special summon Vanisher, activate Vanisher, activates effect, go ahead and add back Galaxy Eyes. I'm like, okay. And also another thing, I was really trying to get Galaxy Eyes on board right now so I could attack into one of his Xyzs and try to just banish it in the battle phase and gain attack. But we end up, you know, just playing into the Rafflesia anyways, and he ends up getting rid of it with the Trap Travel Nightmare. We activate Expedition. That's going to bring out Emperor. Emperor is going to give us an additional normal. Then we normal summon Wizard, activate Wizard effect, and I'm just kind of spinning my wheels at this point, if I'm being totally honest. And my camera actually ends up running out of battery right there anyways, which I guess is fair enough because we do lose that game because we literally just couldn't do anything. So that is our round 2 matchup. We are 0-2, and let's hope we can win out. Alright, so we just finished locals, and in the 4th and final round we played against something I really wasn't expecting because we played against an opponent we played against, like, it seems like almost every week now. They were on Plunder Patrol and they were on Drytron now, and was not expecting this. Completely out of left field. I saw him lead with the field spell and I was like, oh wow, that's not Plunder Patrol. And we got FTK'd game 1 because he summoned Magician of Black Chaos Max off of some Link monster that just came out, and he also tributed
Ben 10 with Choju of the Trillion Hands, which I think just came out in Photon Hypernova. And that was, I mean, despite us getting FTK, which sucked, that was a really, really cool play. I didn't know, I knew that card existed, but I had forgotten about it, and I didn't know it just came out. So it was really cool to see that interaction in the deck, and it kind of makes me want to play Drytron again, if I'm being totally honest, but I digress. He FTK'd us game 1. Game 2, we were able to win. He didn't open up that well, or I think he made a misplay regarding how he searched things. And then game 3, he just outright bricked. And he told me that he didn't have any interruptions after he ashed a Vanisher, I think. And he was like, oh, can you OTK, kind of thing. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I technically could OTK and just go straight for a play that would lose to a Nibiru or something, or a hand trap. So I really wanted to like take it slow and make sure I could OTK without going straight into C62 and playing in potentially to another hand trap like Nibiru. So I went a little bit longer and made sure I was able to go for game without the knowledge of my opponent not having another interruption. So yeah, we ended up winning that last round there, and I don't think we'll go over it. I don't think it's that crazy. Man, FTK'd though by Drytron. What year is it? It's been a long time since that's happened. So, yeah, that's the tournament, and we're going to go home and wrap it up. Welcome to Tuesday, everybody, and also welcome to the wrap-up segment for the 3rd episode of One Deck, One Month, featuring Photon Galaxy Act 2. We only have one more week to go with this deck, and I am going all out in terms of testing and preparation for this, and I'll talk about what that entails in just a few moments. But today is Tuesday, like I said, and I was actually planning on going to locals today for the start of week 4, but I couldn't do it just because I needed to use that time slot today to get ahead on some content that I've been wanting to work on and finish, and today was my only real free day to be able to do that, so I had to cancel on going to locals. But I will be grinding on my streams both tomorrow and on Thursday, and I'll be going to a different locals on Friday, the same one that we went to at the start of this episode, played in that box room. We're going back there to Top Cut, getting some more practice in as much as I possibly can before we go to, again, locals on Saturday for the 4th and final week, our final run with the deck, and hopefully we can have some better results than we did this week. And speaking of this week, we ended up going 2-2, obviously, again, which means no store credit earned. We did not top. And yeah, it's unfortunate. We have gone 2-2 the past 2 weeks. We still can't get back to that elusive 3-1 that we had in the first week. Sometimes the first week seems like we always get some weird bout of luck that gives us a really good record, and we have a hard time getting back to that point. But hopefully we don't have such a hard time going into the 4th week. I think all the testing and the grinding I'm going to put in will hopefully pay off to give us that promising record of 3-1 or 4-0. A 4-0 would be like completely insane. And I'm not holding out hope for it, but I think like this deck definitely could be in the realm of possibilities of doing something like that. Well, let's talk about our matchups. First round, we played against Branded Bestial, and that huge misplay I made regarding Pot of Prosperity probably had some major effect on how the rest of that game was going to go. And then game 2, my opponent just simply opened way better. They had that crossout designator for the Ash, and you know, that whole play line we could have took. If I had taken the Brave, I don't think it would have made a difference either way, just because how good my opponent opened at the end of the day. But you know, we'll never know, right? Because we never ended up making that play. We played against 2 Trap Tricks decks. We lost to one because of D-Barrier, and I said I'd eat those words. I might eat those words, and I did end up eating those words of not siding the crossout designator, which I will not be making that same mistake going into week 4. Those are definitely going to go in the side deck. We played against, like I said, 2 Trap Tricks. The second Trap Tricks matchup went up a little bit easier. Our opponent, I don't think, was as familiar with the deck as our first opponent was. And then round 4, we played against Drytron, which is something I was not expecting. Again, that FTK game 1 completely threw me for a loop. And luckily, games 2 and 3 were able to pull it back. My opponent did make a misplay. I think it was in game 2. And they opened unplayable game 3. So a little bit of luck went into our favor there to be able to take the dub. But I'm not going to complain. A dub's a dub, right? So yeah, that's the recap. Now, let's look at the deck list here. The deck list is going to change just a little bit as we head into the 4th and final week. The main deck, I think I want to make one change right now, and that is cutting Small World down to 1 and adding in a 3rd Photon Vanisher. Photon Vanisher is one of the best extenders in the deck, as I'm quickly finding.
mainly because it can summon itself to the field while we have either a Photon or a Galaxy monster, something that Vancer is not capable of doing. And obviously Thrasher is its own beast. We just need no cards on field. Really can't compare it to Thrasher, but I really like Vanisher quite a bit in this deck, especially when one of our most valuable pieces in the extra deck is a rank 4, more level 4s in the deck. Sounds good for me, and getting more access to Galaxy Eyes, to get it in the grave, to discard for Soldier, you know, whatever it may be, or as a small world target. I like that also. The extra deck is also going to remain the same. I'm going to keep Felgrand in the extra deck, as Cypher X has yet to come up again. The side deck is where we'll have the most change. Eternal Galaxy is going to stay in the side deck. I love Eternal Galaxy thus far. I've only, I think, set it up once or twice, and it didn't really matter in the end, I think, which is unfortunate. There was the one time I drew it, and I kind of bricked on it, but I think the card still has a lot of promise and potential. But the crossout designators are going in the side deck because we cannot afford free losses to D-Barrier. Like, we have to have something at least to be able to counter it. Going into a tournament with no way to counter D-Barrier, yeah, that sounds rough, and it is rough in reality. So those are just a quick notes on the deck. I think, you know, this week I'll maybe give a little bit more thought to actually trying the Therion stuff. I know I talked about those two ideas, but I just don't think they're worth it, honestly. Like, the turn skip build, definitely not something I'm interested in whatsoever. It's there, right? It's definitely something you can do, but it's not something I'm interested in trying. I think the Therion build, if anything, holds the most promise, but again, I'm not holding out hope for it. So, like, I don't know. I think we don't really need to focus too much on those, although I would like to try them because it brings a lot of different, you know, things to the deck. It adds a lot of change, but I don't think we need to look that far into the bushes and into the weeds, right, to look for an answer on how to make this deck really good. I think we just need to focus on what we're losing to, and right now we're losing a lot to D-Barrier, and things like Nibiru and Crossout Designator does help greatly with that. And we are also playing evenly. We've also been taking a lot of L's to evenly, so we put evenly in as a one of going first with crossouts too, and then we kind of make our board a little bit more resilient to evenly matched, which is, again, been a big pain, and maybe even things like Book of Eclipse also. So we're gonna have to work on our siding patterns if that is the case going forward. If we're gonna be putting crossout with a lot of these board breakers in the main to potentially be able to stop them, right, we're gonna need to work on those patterns. But that is pretty much gonna be it for week 1. I'll throw our little weekly recap screen up here. As you guys can see, our progress so far in this month, what our current win-loss is, how much store credit we've earned this month, how much money I've donated to charity. And remember, guys, we are doing a current fundraiser right now for the Clean Air Task Force, so I will urge you guys to donate to this amazing cause if you have not done so already. It's going to a great cause, again, and it means so much if you guys help supported this fundraiser so we can get to our goal of $1,000 to help fight climate change. And if you are unable to donate right now for whatever reason, feel free to share this video around. It'll help out a lot more than you think. And yeah, with that being said, Winter Kills signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And like always, a huge thank you goes to our current Divine level channel members who are Mizfid, HCH Cyber, Cadillacs84, and Pony Stark. Thank you guys so much as always for your extremely kind and very, very generous support of the channel.